Okay, thank you very much, Mark. I really appreciate you for the great introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good and amazing to be here today. My name is Taiwo Ogunwumi. Just a little bit about me, as you had mentioned. I'm from Nigeria. And well, I have my background in geography. I had a master's in environmental risk and human security from the UN University in Germany. Aside from my academic background, I've had opportunities to work with several UN organizations, like so UN Migration and UNESCO, centered on GIS and floods mapping. And of course, I mean, my interests have majorly been on looking at humanitarian projects, that is maybe displacement, refugee camps, and how the geography of, let me say, hazard impacts and the geography of others, their program will be majorly. And another key thing is the fact that I was able to fund an initiative in 2020, which is called Geohazard Risk Mapping Initiative, which I'm going to talk more about as we dive in the part. Just a couple of awards, not few, but not too much, but at least a few of them. A top 50 geospatial rising star in 2022, and of course a UN volunteer country an award, which was because of the initiative I funded in 2020. So yes, this is like a small video looking at flood in one of the most populous city in Lagos State, Nigeria. I think probably this can be played. It's just a second. Can you check? So as you can see, I mean, it's of course you can hear there's floods, but you can see how devastating this could be. On a very, very sunny afternoon in Lagos State in Nigeria, it's one of the most populous states in the country, and it has a whole number of activities, commercial activities, and residential, and so many things. And you can see that, you can imagine how people have been affected, their daily life is being affected, and that's why it becomes so important that flood is one of the issues that we all need to look into and to address. So yes, part of what we do at the initiative, Geohazard Mapping Initiative, is to try and see how we can create flood map at local level. So you realize that over the course of the time, the federal governments always provide flood map at national scale. So at the community level, there's often no flood map that can guide the people that can be used for early warning at the community level. And that's why we decided to choose one of the communities in the country, and we titled this project Flood Susceptibility Mapping of Entire Displaced Person in Maiduguri, northeastern Nigeria. So yes, why is this particular area very, very spectacular? Why? Because this particular area in northeastern Nigeria was faced with issue of conflicts. They call it Boko Haram, the issue of the Islamic jihadists, some couple of years ago, and it causes a lot of destructions and displacement of people from where they are living. So then the UN, the other donors come on board to see how they can bring them together into a single camp, right, and provide relief and response to them. And we now realize that after they are living in this camp with so many international organizations supporting them to rehabilitate and bring them back to normal, they are also being affected by flood. So you can see that is, I'm already at risk of conflict. I think I'm safe where I am, and now I'm having a compounding flood over the year. So then we see that what can we do? What can we do? And we realize that we can basically develop a map, a flood susceptibility maps that can be used by the national government, by the emergency institution, and as well by the camp coordinators themselves to see how they can ensure that this set of people are not being affected by the yearly flood. And it's just to expose some of the camps that are susceptible to floods. So what do? We decided to use this method called a multi-criteria approach. It's a method that's been in literature for over like 10 years now. But of course, it has not been applied in this study area. And as well, because of the present issue of flood in this particular area. The key data set that we try to put together is rainfall, data elevation, model of the location, land use data, and as well the catchment and stream network for some locations that have this. So we try to see how we can bring those four key data together and derive the result of a flood susceptibility maps of this area. So yes, like I was saying earlier, elevation becomes so much important. Why? Because you tend to realize that area of higher elevation, right, they are less susceptible, while area of lower elevation, they are more susceptible to flood. So we try to factor, elevation into this. And if you can see in literature, it has been proven that area with low altitude are highly susceptible to flood occurrence. And that's why we have chosen this particular data set. So the second data is slope. This is trying to look at the direction, an amount of speed of water. But of course, it's quite important I make this clear that you can always derive slope from elevation. So it's the same source, but of course, a particular product that come out of the DEM that was used for this particular survey. Yes, another key important data set that we put into place is rainfall, the rainfall data. In this regard, because we're trying to look at local data, we didn't use the global data because we see that will be so much, it won't be more simplicity or coming down to local context. So we try to make use of the rainfall data set that has been available by the Nigeria Meteorological Agency. They are the one that collect data on rainfall. But of course, it's not that really geospatial enough because we have limited places that have rainfall gauge. So therefore, we get some of the key few pointers available, and we try to conduct an interpolation. And that's why you can see here, inverse standard weight to interpolate the rainfall. So that's we try to make use of the known location to understand the unknown location. And that's what brings out this map that you are seeing here. You see showing the variation of the rainfall intensity in this particular study area that we choose. So yes, another important thing that we try to do is to understand the distance of the major river, to within the study area. So in this regard, what do? We try to create a buffer. And if you look at this place, you see this is the major river here, right? And we try to create a buffer of 1,000, 2,000, extended like that. Meaning that why? That is to say, it has been statistically proven that locations that are closer to the river, they are more susceptible to flood compared to further locations, right? So we try to factor this out, and somebody will ask me, why do you choose 1,000 meters? Yes, this also based on some literature reference that we read about and see. So, well, previous research I've chosen this 1,000 meter, and some of the experts were also, some of the land use, land urban planning experts were also, consulted to ask them what has been the regulation that they've put into place for people staying far from the water. And they say, yes, 1,000. So we decided to use 1,000 as the main buffer. But us also, because it's multi-criteria, it's very important that we try to buffer, the entire study area, which you are seeing here. So we did it like in extensive of 1,000, 2,000, it goes like that up to this place. So meaning that for someone that is living here, definitely is far from, this. That you say, he might also be susceptible, but not as much as people that are living very close to this place. So we decided to look at distance from the major river. Yes, another important data that was used in this particular project is the land use data set. Why? Because it has also been proven in research that you realize that for instance, buildings, or let me say more residential area, they are highly, they are more susceptible to flood, right? And you realize that even the same way it comes to the amount of infiltration that can always come in, because there are many buildings, so water does not really go down easily. And at the same time, locations that you also have rivers, also they are highly also susceptible because compounding water. You have an existing water, rainfall again, then you have more water. In contrast to vegetation that can easily absorb water, that can easily retain water. So that's why we put in land use, land cover of this particular area as another data set. What do? We get this data set from the Sentinel imagery, from the Copernicus Sentinel, and we try to do some land use changes on it. Because why? Of course, somebody will say that why don't we use the global data land use land cover? Because this is not really detailed. So we try to make our own land use map within the local context of the area. And that's the result that you can see here. So you can see here that we have more built-ups, right? And we have less vegetation along this place, and we have rivers. So which also means that, well, the more built up, the more, water will be very difficult for it to go down and, and infiltrate. So yes, this is a very just a short workflow of what was done for this particular project, and just a recap of what I've said earlier. So you have the DEM, you have the Sentinel-2 data sets, you have the rainfall, you have the water bodies, that's the river, and of course we have the boundary of the area we're trying to study. Very important data set. And you see from the DEM, we extract the elevation and slope together, derive the stream water, do the buffer, right? Of course, the same thing with the Sentinel-2 to get the land use and cover. The rainfall was gotten, and we do some interpolation to make it more geospatial. and of course, including the water bodies too. This is the river, the larger river, coming down to do the 1,000-meter buffer along. And all these are combined together, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to have a weight overlay and which lead to our final maps. So, I mean, part of the geospatial, let me say, technicalities have been put in place in this is that, we conducted a buffer, we generate slope, we did interpolation, we did classify them because that's very, very essential. And we try to do some weight overlay to have all this layer together, multiply them to get the final, flood susceptibility maps. Okay, so yes, so then we have the final result that shows the geospatial variation of the flood, and you can see here now we have more, we have more of this is highly susceptible to flood occurrence, and it extends like that in these regards. But what I mean, this is just another ordinary information. We need to consider the exposure, and that's the major goal of this particular project, right? We want to see how many IDP camps, existing IDP camps, might be also susceptible to flood. Why? So that there can be, quick action in some of this camp, so that the donors and several people can quickly take a very, very good action to see how they can, improve their capacity or probably adaptive strength in this location. So, and you can see, we got the data for all the camps from UN OCHA and some of the UNTS that are coordinating, camp information. And as well, the population of each of the camps becomes so much important because we want to know, even if it's 20 camps, how many of the people will probably be at risk in case there's flood. So the results shows that we have over 24 camps that are highly susceptible out of the total of 35 camps that we have in this entire county. We call it local government in Nigeria or county in this in the context of Europe or US. So you see all this place. So you see there are a lot of clusters forming here, which are highly peak camps. So we then conclude that, well, if we combine the very high, very high locations and with the high locations, we tend to realize that we have over 25 out of 35 IDP camps that are within high, and I mean, of course, a very high and high susceptibility to flood, which is a very, very good result that demands quick actions, that demand quick response, that demand flood preparedness and even, adaptive, programs that need to be created in some of these camps that we have identified. At the same time, we also realize that, yes, it's also be of good, not just the camp alone. For as much as we have done this particular research, it's also going to be good to expand to see number of buildings in some of this area that might also be affected. So we decided to just make it of the OpenStreetMap to overlay it on the susceptibility map to see number of buildings that might be at risk. And also realize that this is also very important, not just for the UN or UN OCHA alone, the town planners, the humanitarian agency organization can easily make use of this map. So we decided not just to create a paper map, but also to develop an interactive web app, that they can work with, that they can make some search. So you see here, this is the first map of the Maiduguri city, and they can always search for their area. So you see, it becomes so much handy, not just a static paper that you cannot really work with. So you can just interact with this, select and unselect some couple of variables here, and you can be able to see what's going on. So aside this, what we also try to do as an initiative is that, well, we also realize that sometimes when there's flood map, a lot of people find it difficult to validate because there's no data for flood validation. Why? Because some couple of past flood events are not recorded. So we try as much as possible to also develop a web app. It's an interactive, it's a mobile web app that the community can always use to report flood. And it contains, the date of the floods, the damage caused by the flood, the time it occurred. We tend to realize that in research, even when you create a flood map, you want to validate, you want to understand the place where you have the past flood issues. And that's why this becomes so much essential. So we try to create this available to the entire country, basically. And of course, with the support from some of the states, state government ministries, say, okay, this is what we have, and this is this. But of course, it hasn't gained more traction, because people don't, some people don't have internet, some people don't even know how to use it. Some people don't even remember that there's an app when there's floods, but at least few people are using it just to report flood, and the data are being, coming to our side And what do we do with the data? We try as much as possible to share the data with the state institution and several people that might need it, even on our initiative website. So yes, what do we recommend from this research? Very, very important. I think this is one of the key things that can always bring a new solution, of course. And the first thing is that we recommend that through our map, they can be used to create relocations and even evacuations of the people who are residing in these camps that are susceptible to floods. Another thing is that, the emergency institution themselves can be able to, raise more funds or budgets to understand where they can move the people to ahead of the coming rainfall. This project was done at the end of 2021. And if you see this year flood in Nigeria, it is more and more devastating, almost on the news. You can see it, which is even more devastating compared to the 2012 floods. And then at the same time, more specifically, the result of this research make it very clear that they can easily go to some of these camps to understand if they have issues about drainage channels and what they can do to ensure that there are drainage channels in some of these camps to ensure flow of water. Absolutely. And then that is to say, of course, it's also going to make a good planning for them if they want to create a new camps, a new IDP camps. The map serves as a reference to know where should we build a new camp. This is highly accessible to flood, and which location is the best to switch it there. So those are some of the recommendations that we try to make. And of course, this also showcases the essential of the project, the essential of how we need to not just look at flood, we should also look at the impact of this flood on IDP and not just the general, national flood map alone. Thank you very much.